You have spent so much of your life trying to be seen, trying to be chosen, trying to be enough in the eyes that keep turning away. And somewhere along the way, without even noticing, you began to breathe on a borrowed rhythm. You began to shape your voice to match what others wanted to hear. You began to shrink the parts of you that felt too bright or too strange or too honest. And now there is a quiet ache in your chest, the kind that follows you like a shadow even in moments of laughter. You feel it in the pause after every accomplishment, when the applause fades and the room grows still. There is a moment late at night when the world softens and you finally hear yourself. It is brief, almost fragile, like the flicker of a candle in an old temple. In that moment you sense something ancient within you, something untouched by expectation. Yet it slips away as soon as morning comes. The day begins, and you return to the familiar performance, the careful steps, the invisible contract you never signed but keep obeying. Approval becomes a forest you keep walking through, even though you no longer remember why you entered. Sometimes you wonder who you might be if no one were watching. If every mirror suddenly vanished. If every voice that ever told you who you should become simply dissolved like fog in the rising sun. A strange freedom calls to you in these thoughts. It whispers through the cracks of your routine. It rises from the quiet part of your breath. But stepping toward it feels like standing at the edge of a deep river. You do not know how to cross. Still, there is a truth that keeps returning. A truth that unsettles and awakens. You sense that you have been living through the eyes of others for so long that your own vision has grown dim. Something within you wants to open again. Something within you wants to remember its name. And yet, beneath it all, something still calls your name. You begin to see that the longing for approval is not a simple desire. It is a shape carved in you long before you had words for it. It moves like a shadow through your choices, soft but persistent, guiding you toward paths that feel safe yet strangely hollow. When you follow it, you feel protected. When you resist it, you feel exposed, as if the ground beneath you were made of thin glass. This is the strange tension you carry, the quiet conflict between the self you present and the self that waits behind the curtain. When you look closely, you notice how the mind becomes a forest of mirrors. Every reflection shows you a version of yourself shaped by someone's expectation. A parent, a lover, a stranger whose passing comment stayed with you longer than it should have. You walk through this forest believing the reflections are real, believing the echoes of other people's fears are your own. Yet there is a deeper current moving beneath these images, a current you rarely trace because it demands a different kind of seeing. There is an ancient fire inside you, a fire the world often trains you to ignore. It burns quietly in the center of your chest. It is the part of you that remembers your first truth. Before comparison, before roles, before the need to be approved. When you reconnect with this fire, even for a moment, something shifts. It feels like stepping out of a crowded room into the stillness of a vast night. The sky stretches wide, and you sense your own presence again, unfiltered and whole. But the old pattern returns. The need to please, the instinct to adapt, the subtle urge to dim your light so no one feels threatened by its glow. These movements become a second skin, worn so long that you forget it is not your own. They pull you away from yourself like a slow current, leading you down a river that never belonged to you. Yet in the distance, the sound of water changes. You hear the call of your deeper nature, soft but steady, like the murmur of an unseen spring. As this awareness grows, you begin to understand why the question unsettles you. Are you living for yourself or for approval? The answer is not a simple decision. It is an inner journey, a crossing from shadow to light, from noise to silence, from borrowed identity to the quiet truth rising in your breath. And as you stand at the threshold, you feel that the real journey has only begun. There are moments when you feel the weight of your own performance. It settles on your shoulders like an invisible cloak, woven from years of saying yes when your body whispered no. You sense it when you walk into a room and immediately scan the air, searching for approval the way a traveler searches for water. Your breath changes. Your posture shifts. You become a version of yourself that feels familiar yet strangely distant. It is a subtle shape shifting, a quiet betrayal that repeats itself in the rhythm of your days. In these moments you meet the first layer of your shadow, the part of you that learned to survive through adaptation. It carries memories you rarely revisit, memories of needing to be good, to be pleasant, to be what others needed so they would not turn away. This shadow is not your enemy. It is a guardian forged by the child you once were. But when it governs your choices now, it keeps you bound to a life made of echoes. You live as a reflection rather than a presence. You breathe through filters not your own. If you could see this pattern with your inner eye, it would look like a river bending away from its natural course. Each bend is shaped by the landscape of your past. A critical voice, an unmet need, a silent fear that hardened into habit. The river still flows, but it no longer moves with the grace of its true source. It hesitates. It narrows. It moves through channels carved by old stories. Yet beneath the surface the water remembers its original path. It whispers of a wider horizon. And as you recognize this, something quiet begins to shift. You start to see how often you abandon yourself in small ways. In the tone you soften to avoid conflict. In the silence you choose to maintain harmony. In the dreams you postpone because someone once suggested they were too much. Each recognition is a soft illumination, a lantern held up in the forest of your psyche. You feel the first tremor of truth rising, the sense that the river can change its course again, the sense that you can return. There comes a moment when the mask begins to feel too tight. You notice it in the small fractures of your day. A quiet resentment when you say yes again. A dull ache in your chest when your real opinion stays unspoken. A sense of drifting whenever you look at your own reflection. It feels as if you are watching someone else live your life, someone shaped by expectation rather than essence. The fatigue becomes heavier, not because you are weak, but because the soul grows tired of pretending. As this awareness deepens, you meet a different part of your inner world. A figure standing at the edge of your unconscious, watching you with patient eyes. It is the self you left behind, the one who refused to trade truth for belonging. In the language of your psyche, it holds the energy of the forgotten, the dreams you buried, the boundaries you dissolved, the voice you silenced to keep the peace. It carries a sadness that is not loud, but profound, like a temple abandoned beneath layers of dust. When you feel this presence, you understand that approval has cost you something sacred. If this inner figure could be seen as an image, it would appear as a lone lantern glowing in a dense forest. The trees rise tall around it, casting long shadows on the path. Yet the light persists. It does not shout. It does not chase you. It simply waits for the moment you turn toward it. This lantern represents the truth that never left you, the truth that survived the compromises and the years of self-abandonment. It is the spark of your original fire, flickering but steady. As you approach this light, something inside you begins to soften. The tightness around your identity loosens. The fear of being disliked loses a little of its power. You feel a small shift, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably real. It is the sensation of stepping closer to your own center. And in this subtle movement, a door begins to appear in the landscape of your mind. A door that has always been there, waiting for you to remember how to open it. When you stand before this inner door, you feel both fear and recognition. Fear because crossing it means letting go of the identity you built to survive. Recognition because some hidden part of you has been waiting for this moment with quiet devotion. Your hand hesitates over the handle. You sense the presence of every doubt you ever carried. Will they still accept you? Will you still belong? Who will you be without the approval that once felt like oxygen? The questions circle like birds in a dark sky, yet beneath them, something deeper rises. This is the moment when the psyche reveals its deeper architecture. The need for approval was never a flaw. It was a longing for connection, shaped by early wounds and silent fears. Your mind created pathways to keep you safe, pathways that once protected you but now confine you. Jung would say this is where the self calls from the center, inviting you to reclaim the pieces you scattered across the years. The shadow you feared is not an enemy. It is the gatekeeper of forgotten strength, the neglected voice that waited for you to return. If this moment could be captured as a symbol, it would be the image of dawn breaking over a river. The water reflects the first light, revealing its true course beneath the surface. The forest around you begins to glow. The path becomes visible in places that once felt impenetrable. You feel the shift not as a dramatic revelation, but as a quiet clarity spreading through your breath. The awareness that you no longer need to choose between truth and connection. You only need to choose presence. With this clarity comes a new movement, a slow, steady step inward. You open the door and feel the air change. It is warmer here, softer, like stepping into the quiet chamber of an ancient temple. Inside, you hear the faint sound of your own voice returning to you, not demanding, not pleading, simply calling you by your true name. You realize that the journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before approval became a condition for love. And this realization guides you gently toward what comes next. As you step into this inner chamber, the pieces begin to gather. The river that bent away from itself starts to remember its source. The lantern in the forest shines a little brighter. The abandoned temple breathes again. You feel these images moving through you, not as thoughts, but as quiet recognitions. Each one reflects a part of your journey, each one revealing how far you have traveled from the outer noise toward the center of your own presence. It is as if the unconscious is placing its hands on your shoulders, guiding you back to yourself. The self that once lived for approval begins to loosen its grip. The mask grows thin. The echoes fade. And in their place, a gentler rhythm rises. You sense your breath deepening, as though your body finally trusts that it no longer needs to perform. The old patterns still whisper, but they no longer command. They drift like shadows at the edge of a clearing. In the middle of that clearing stands the one who has always been waiting for you, the one who does not need to be chosen to exist. You feel the truth settling slowly, like dawn light moving across the floor of a silent room. You realize that living for approval kept you leaning outward, searching for reflections that could never reveal your real face. Now the movement shifts. You turn inward. You return to the still river within you. The forest opens. The fire brightens. You sense yourself standing at the threshold of a different life, one shaped not by fear, but by awareness. A life where presence replaces performance. And in this soft rising of clarity, something in you expands. You feel the tension melt, the inner space widen, the heart steady itself. The question that once troubled you becomes a doorway to freedom. Are you living for yourself or for approval? As the words echo in your mind, they no longer feel like an accusation. They feel like an invitation, a call to walk with your own truth at your side, a call to breathe in a rhythm that belongs only to you. And as this awareness settles, you feel yourself returning to the quiet center where all things begin. You stand in this quiet center and feel how different the world looks from here. The forest of mirrors no longer confuses you. You can walk through it without losing your way. You see reflections, but you no longer mistake them for truth. Each one becomes a reminder of how often you shaped yourself to be accepted. And yet, instead of regret, you feel a gentle compassion rising. Every version of you was trying to find safety. Every choice was a step toward understanding what you needed to reclaim. When you breathe now, something in you settles. You sense the fire inside your chest warm, steady, unmistakably yours. It does not ask for permission. It does not dim to please anyone. It simply burns with the quiet certainty of what is real. You begin to trust this fire, not as an idea, but as a living presence within you. A presence that guides your steps, softens your fears, and reminds you that authenticity is not a performance. It is a homecoming. As the day unfolds in your mind, you imagine moving through your life with this awareness. Each conversation becomes an opportunity to stay aligned. Each decision becomes a chance to choose yourself without shutting out the world. You no longer need approval to feel whole. You need only to remain close to the one who has walked with you all along, the self you once abandoned and now welcome back with open arms. And so you leave this meditation with a quiet promise, to listen a little closer, to breathe a little deeper, to let your presence speak where your fear once stood. You carry the lantern with you. You carry the river. You carry the first light of dawn touching your inner temple. And as you step forward, you sense a calm whisper within you, a whisper that feels like peace.